John Beaudin Rock History Book. You know, for a while we weren't doing these on the weekends because weekend viewership for something like this is usually lower. But we like doing it so much. It's Today in History. And a big headline before we get started. If you want to support the channel, there are links in the description for Patreon or PayPal. You can get early access to our videos. But a big day in rock and roll. If it's your birthday, by the way, September 11th. It's a big day for a lot of different reasons. Everyone's been sending out memorials for this terrible thing, the terrible attack to the United States many moons ago. And I remember I was watching the television, what had happened when the whole thing went down. Everyone's phoning their relatives going, can you believe what's going on? So we thought I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that for sure. I've got notes on my hand for this one. So we're going to get started. And by the way, like I said, if it's your birthday today, happy birthday. September 11th, how David Bowie's guitarist made John Mellencamp a superstar. And the song we're talking about with John Mellencamp is his biggest I wrote it down, 285 million hits. On this day, in 1982, John Mellencamp became the first solo artist, male artist, to have a #1 album, American Fool, and 2 top 10 hits on the same time. Hurt So Good, which was number 8 on this day in 82, and Jack and Diane, which was number 4. Now, Mellencamp had done not that well so far in his career. Chestnut Street Incident, his first album, you can see it there in 1976, didn't even chart on the Billboard Top 100 chart. And in 78, there was another album, didn't do well either. So the first two, not even charting on the top 200. Then there was a little bit of hope after that with the album John Cougar, which you see there. It went gold, reached number 64 on the charts, but then had a hit. I remember walking to a record store called Kelly's, and I could hear this long guitar thing from I Need a Lover, Who Won't Drive Me Crazy, which peaked, by the way, at number 28. He finally had a hit on the charts. Then album number 4 also hit, but even a bigger hit in 1980 with the album Nothing Matters But What If It Did. It was his first platinum album. The hit was his biggest so far. It reached number 17. Ain't Even Done With the Night. I remember all my friends had that album. I didn't pick it up till much later. And then, of course, American Fool was the first superstar album from John Mellencamp. It went number 1. It was number 1 for 9 weeks on the Billboard charts. Now, producer Don Gehman said that there were a lot of problems with the album. They had recorded 20 songs, and they presented these songs to the company, the record company. The A&R guy comes in and listens to the album and says, I don't hear a single. Jack and Diane was in that mix, or a rough cut of it at the very least, but he didn't hear anything. They wanted to dump Mellencamp from the label, but Don Gehman convinced them to keep him on the label. He says, let's at least finish the album, at least close that file. And then they released it. Hurt So Good was the first single. It reached number 2 on the Billboard charts. So he had a top 10 hit at last, and then came Jack and Diane. Oops, let me get rid of that. There we go. Mellencamp told Classic Rock magazine, I owe an awful lot for Jack and Diane, which, like I said, Hurt So Good is 110 million streams on Spotify. But Jack and Diane, 285. So no matter what he did before and after that, Jack and Diane has ended up being his signature song. And at times, Mellencamp has said that he wasn't really a big fan of the song. But you got to love those old songs that you need to play all the time. So he says, I owe Mick Ronson the hit Jack and Diane. Mick was very instrumental in helping me arrange the song that I'd thrown out in the junk heap. Ronson came down and played 3 or 4 tracks and worked on American Fool for 4 to 5 weeks. All of a sudden, for Jack and Diane, Mick comes up and says, Johnny, you should put a baby rattle out there. And he thought, what the heck's a baby rattles on the song? So he put that percussion in there, and he put in the Let It Rock, Let It Roll, the chorus kind of choiring thing, which Mellencamp says really is the part that most people remember from the song. So Mick Ronson, there he is. Hold on, let me get rid of this. There he is, Mick Ronson. That's when he was all cleaned up, near the end of his life. Mick Ronson died on April 29th, 1993. He was only 46 years old. He'd worked with David Bowie, of course, and Lou Reed, Ian Hunter. I saw him with Ian Hunter in the early 80s. Also Van Morrison, Bob Dylan. He died of liver cancer. But what a powerhouse of a musician he was. There was lots after, of course, for John Mellencamp. Of course, he changed his name to, I'm saying of course a lot again. I've been catching myself with that. There was big albums, of course, and big hits, and like Big Daddy in 89, The Lonesome Jubilee in 87, Scarecrow, 5 million albums for Scarecrow. I had all these trio of albums. These trio of albums right here, I feel that is his sweet spot. American Fool I didn't buy because I hated Jack and Diane. My ex-wife and I lived, she was my girlfriend at the time, we lived in this apartment building, and there was a drug dealer living upstairs from us, I think in Edmonton. I think his name was Gino or Dino. He drove this Camaro, and later we saw him drive a van where he was throwing food at someone else because he was mad at someone driving that cut him off or something like that. But anyway, Gino used to play Jack and Diane over and over and over again on his stereo downstairs, like to nauseum, to the point where I'm going, why does he only play that one song? And then it changed all of a sudden. He discovered there were other songs on an album, and he started playing the American Fool album over and over again. One day he parked in my parking spot, and I called the landlord, and they towed his car away, and he knocked on my door, and he said he was going to kill me. And every time he saw me, he threatened to kill me, to a point where I said, you're going to kill me over a parking spot, really? And like I said, years later, I'm sure he was a Mellencamp fan still. We saw him on the road with the same girlfriend, and he was throwing food at the car beside him because he was driving a van then. And I'm going, oh, Gino, you've never changed. But thank you for ruining me on John Mellencamp. It got better. By the time the Authority song came out, I was back on board again. So many more hits for Mellencamp. Let's see if I can get, there's Mick Ronson. There we go. But there's a lot more that happened in rock and roll. I want to put this down on this day in history. There he is, Mickey Hart, Grateful Dead drummer, born in Brooklyn, New York on this day, 1943. He's always a character, that guy. Leo Kottke, American guitarist, great guitarist, one of the best in the world, 1945. He was born on this day. Tommy Shaw, you know Tommy Shaw from Styx, born on this day, 1953, Montgomery, Alabama. Victor Wooten, man, that guy's got chops on bass. A Grammy Award-winning jazz fusion funk bluegrass bass guitarist, played with Bela Fleck and the Flecktones. Born in Mountain Home, Idaho, 1964. Got a lot of birthday. Harry Connick Jr. He looks good with a little scruff. Born on this day, 1967. I had an interview with Harry, but he canceled on me. I don't know what happened. Maybe he got sick. Probably had legitimate reasons. Don't cancel on John Beaudin. Come on. Richard Ashcroft. People have compared him to Steven Tyler and Mick Jagger because of his looks. He's got kind of like a really rugged, oddball, strange looks. An incredibly talented guy. Interesting gentleman. Richard Ashcroft, British singer from The Verve, Bittersweet Symphony. I always like Lucky Man better from that album. Born in Lancashire, England on this day in 1971. We got more. John Buckland, British guitarist for Coldplay. Man, he was influenced by. I listen to his stuff and I hear David Gilmour. Born on this day in London, England in 1977. People who passed away. Peter Tosh. Born Winston Hubert McIntosh, Jamaican reggae musician. Dies at his home, shot dead at his home in Jamaica at 42 years old. And one more for you. Also died on this day, punk poet Jim Carroll. Remember People Who Died? Remember that song? He died at the age of 60 of a heart attack in Manhattan, New York. There you have it. I'm going to read some of your comments. This one took a long time today. Blaze Eisner, Brother Blaze. Thank you, Brother John. Remember 9/11? I wrote 9/11. Yeah, like I don't remember what day it is. I was on my way to work in San Diego when I turned on my service van. Peter Jennings was on the radio, and I went back to the house and listened in shock. It was just, it's almost like, when a rock star dies or a relative dies or somebody really close to you in general dies, you have this incredible shock. It was just hard to comprehend. Blaze Eisner, God bless this Sunday. Enjoy Mark Farner. Thank you. ARC, the Album Review Channel. Hi, John, from the UK. Mick Ronson was brilliant guitarist. He really was. I had pleasure, like I said, to see him with Ian Hunter. Lisa Parker. I always truly love John Mellencamp. He's does not suffer fools. And you look at any picture of him from the last 20 years, and he's got this kind of like, people say resting bitch face, but I wouldn't call it that. I really respect John Mellencamp, but he was, he just doesn't put up with crap. He just doesn't. Sable Miner, LOL, what a scene. JD, Jack and Diane was a hit in 1980. Oh, did I screw up there? JD, Mellencamp looks short on that album. Sable Miner, Peeps, could be so violent. Back with the big hair, Intimidated. Mr. New Orleans, Sable Miner. Sable Miner, I bought the first single, Gilmore's album after Pink Floyd. Oh, cool. So like I said, this trio of albums to me, oops, come over here. Oh, I've got the, where is it? Original master recording of this one. God, I can't see. There we go. I've got all this stuff on my screen down here on my MacBook. And of course I did eventually buy American Fool. But it took me a while because of this guy that lived downstairs from us, Gino. He was crazy. He never put a hand on me, but I thought he was going to kill me. And I remember thinking, he's going to do that over, like, don't park in my parking space. Maybe he didn't like me because he had a Z28. I think he had a Berlinetta, a Camaro. I think that's what he drove. And I drove a 1978 Trans Am with a funky chicken on the hood. Oh, my God. Oh, no, that's good. So Sunday night, I'm off to work on Patreon for our sister channel, Rock History Book, Rock History Music. I'm all confused. And we're going to put a whole bunch of Caleb Quay stuff up. I just interviewed him. Roger Dean, the man who created the Yes covers. And a few other musicians that we recently... John Cafferty. A lot of stuff on our sister channel. So this is, not to be confusing, but this is our Today in History channel. It always met that way. Our full interviews go on this channel as well. And the other one's all interviews. We will put interviews on here now and then when, if we're talking about the Boston album, we'll put on some people who played, like Barry Goudreau on the back, or Jim Masdia, Frank Cosmo, he wasn't on the first few albums, but he did eventually replace Brad Delp for a little while. Then they were both together. We're going to interview him in the next little while. So thank you for coming on. Oh, Lisa Parker. I wish you were on every day. I really enjoy watching you and getting all the music info. Thank you so much. Thanks for all you do. Lisa, I appreciate that. Thank you. Thanks for everyone who's out there. If you want to support the channel, there are links in the description. Like I said, I'm about to go in and do a lot of stuff on Patreon. And it's fun doing this. I enjoy doing it. And thanks for humoring me every single day. It's John Beaudin. This is Rock History Book. Take care of yourself.